This hero isn't just overpowered, he's borderline insane. Summoned to save a world facing an S-rank catastrophe, he refuses to trust anyone and trains like his life depends on surviving, not winning. While his goddess tries to guide him, he's already convinced she's useless and possibly a threat to him. An announcement spread across the divine realm, declaring the next salvation an S-class difficulty. The chosen contestant was the goddess of healing, Restarte, or Rista for short. She expressed gratitude for the encouragement and hoped the experience would elevate her to high-ranking status. Moments later, she fled to her rundown home screaming for mercy, unable to accept that a newbie goddess had received an S-rank assignment. Rista had been born 100 years prior. She had summoned heroes and saved 5 worlds so far, a pathetic number compared to other gods who had saved hundreds, while S-class worlds were so dreadful that even high-ranking gods avoided them. Her previous heroes had come from Japan. As she searched through potential candidates, she found only sheltered losers who all looked the same. Frustration overwhelmed her, causing her to fall over as the top candidate file flopped onto her face. Upon inspection, the hero remained level 1, yet possessed ridiculously high stats, a 1 in 100 million find. Delighted, she prepared a magic circle and cast the summoning spell, drawing a soul from Earth. Seiya appeared, radiating an overwhelming aura immediately after reincarnation. Restarte became instantly captivated and fell in love, drooling like a disgusting old hag as she explained the demon lord threat and his duty to save the world. Seiya immediately called her a freak for summoning his soul from the dead and began doubting her status as a goddess, questioning why she could not save the world herself. Rista explained that as a divine being, she could only assist while humans must save themselves. Remembering how previous Japanese men reacted, she asked him to say status. He questioned the request as he sighed and said properties, revealing his status. Annoyed by the hero's rebellious behavior, she pleaded with him to just say status. When he finally complied, she tried to rizz him up by praising his unbelievably high stats. He asked what would happen if he died, and she explained he would be sent back to his world, yet still refused to go. Growing desperate, she opened a portal like Doctor Strange, but he refused again and turned around. She followed him, boasting about her amazing healing abilities, trying to convince him, but he refused to simp out. He concluded that he had been summoned because she was basically a worthless bitch, striking a nerve and leaving her frozen. He stated that if refusal was impossible, he would accept under one condition. Before he could continue, her mind drifted into romantic fantasies between goddess and human. Meanwhile, he dropped down and began intense prison workouts to get swole. In that moment, Rista realized a fatal flaw she had overlooked. He was pathologically cautious and insane. While Seiya trained hard like Terry Crews, Rista went to vent to a higher-ranking goddess named Arya. She explained that taking on an S-class assignment is no easy task, and perhaps the cautious hero's attitude is appropriate. She reminded Rista that time in the divine realm moved a lot slower than the peasant's world, and while he was training, she should be a good goddess and provide him with food and somewhere to sleep. Realizing she was indeed useless, she rushed back to her bummy little hut. The moment she opened the door, she offered him rice balls, but he declined, saying his mom told him not to accept food from weird strangers. He asked her to take a bite first in case there was poison. Heartbroken with the allegations, she took a bite, and he still refused. She told him she would leave 3 meals a day outside and not bother him, then gave him a mini-me to buzz her when he was ready. 4 days went by, and Rista began feeling depressed. After a week, she was sitting like a vegetable, looking like the chocolate grandma from SpongeBob. Then finally it rang. She opened the door excitedly, and the moment she saw him, her nose started bleeding like the Grandmaster Jiraiya when he saw Naruto. She asked to check his status, and when he opened it up, he had leveled up 15 times. He said if it were up to him, he would max out his level first. Rista opened up a gate. Seiya announced he was 100% prepared, and they finally entered Gaia Brande. After arriving, the villagers greeted them, while Seiya suspiciously asked if she should be so casually speaking with the peasants, while dressed like an immoral dancer. He began suspecting the villagers as shapeshifters in disguise, or a mass murderer, claiming he must kill them before they could do them in first. Rista began having doubts and started wondering if the hero she summoned was actually a psychopath. A young girl named Nina ran up to them and asked if Rista was a goddess because of how beautiful she was. Rista asked if she knew where a weapons shop was, and she pointed them in the right direction. Once inside, Seiya requested 3 sets of armor. He claimed he needed 1 for use, 1 as a spare, and 1 in case he lost the spare, but Rista immediately stopped him, calling him an overly cautious freak, and bought 1 set instead. Next, he went to an old lady's shop and requested 30 smoke bombs, 50 medicinal herbs, and 50 antidotal herbs while Rista watched in horror. She suggested going to the next town and battling weak monsters on the way, but Seiya was too paranoid to follow her directions. The girl from before came over and offered him a lucky charm in case he was scared of monsters. He asked if she put a curse on it, but Rista quickly covered his mouth. Her father came over to apologize if his daughter was bothering them, but Seiya said it was okay, finally showing some decency. On the way to the next town, they encountered a deformed slime, and Rista ordered him to kill it. But when she looked over, He was trembling behind a rock. She explained that it was basically the weakest type of monster, but then he suddenly had a murderous glare, picked up his sword, and annihilated the slime for absolutely no reason at all. Rista criticized that it was too extreme, but he insisted he wasn't finished. He casted Hell's Fire and repeated the attack until nothing was left. Afterwards, Rista suggested using the scan ability so he doesn't go overboard next time, but he said he did. He claimed it might have had secret abilities, so he decided to end its life. Suddenly, a demon appeared known as Chaos Machina, one of the 4 heavenly kings serving the Demon Lord. She claimed her Demon Lord detected a hero summoning before it even happened and predicted the pair would appear in this low-level peasant town. When Rista scanned her, she realized she was too powerful. While Seiya had already taken off, leaving her behind like a washed-up hag, she chased after him, screaming for her life. Seiya dropped a load of smoke grenades in Risterte's face, and after they blew up, he picked her up and ran. He demanded she open a portal so they can escape to the Divine Realm. However, the moment she began, the demon appeared behind them, startling her, and when it swung its sword, Rista tripped forward, and Seiya blasted her with his fire magic, while they both fell into the gate. When they landed, Seiya grabbed her by the face and threw her off, then kicked her out and demanded solitude for training, declaring he'll buzz her when he's ready. After 4 days, Rista grew impatient and pulled out her special crystal ball like Baba from Dragon Ball Z. When it activated, the demon asked if she was stalking her. She had a closer look and saw a random bum under her foot. She claimed if they don't show up, she'll kill a villager every 10 minutes. Rista dropped everything and rushed over to inform Seiya. When she arrived, he said he was busy blasting his quads. He brought up that time as moving slower in the Divine Realm and asked what was the ratio. She explained it was 100 to 1. 10 minutes on Gaia Brande would be 16 hours in the Divine Realm. Suddenly, they heard screaming from the crystal ball. It was Nina, and her father was up next. Rista began opening a gate, but Seiya immediately stopped her, claiming he wasn't ready. While she pleaded with him, the girl begged the demon not to body her father. Rista asked if he cared that Nina was in danger and mentioned that she gave him her lucky flower charm. But Seiya wasn't soft. He wasn't going to fold. He took out the flower charm and said he was probably right that it was cursed, and it was the reason they encountered that monstrosity. When Rista heard that, she was heartbroken and said she was a failure and shouldn't have summoned him in the first place. She asked if he was actually just scared, that's why he was so cautious to begin with. But the real reason was more sinister. Just as she was walking out in tears, Seiya stated if he died, the entire world would perish as well, so he can't go unprepared. He got suited up, and when she scanned him, he had leveled up even more. He said he was now 100% prepared to whoop that trick like hustle and flow. Just as Chaos Machina was about to execute Nina's father, Seiya appeared and unleashed a new attack. With that, Nina's father's bonds were cut, and he was set free. After scanning Seiya's new abilities, the demon unleashed her Berserk mode and went full-on She-Hulk. The disgusting cow rushed in, swinging her sword like a madman, but he dodged all of her attacks. Suddenly, she stabbed herself through the chest and started growing into an even uglier, disgusting abomination. The cow jumped up above and dove straight down onto Seiya, but he blocked it with one arm, surprising both the cow and the goddess. Rista figured he would be too pathetic to block that attack, so she scanned him again, but he locked her out. She tried again, but he gave her the boot and called her a degenerate. She focused and used her goddess powers, but she was too weak compared to the man she fell in love with. When she finally broke through, she realized his stats were much higher than when they departed, and that he lied about getting ready. He was already strong enough to fight her. She rose into the air, about to destroy everything with her dark magic. However, he suddenly appeared in front of her and startled her. He unleashed his Phoenix Drive, a nerdy name for a technique, and annihilated the monstrosity. After the battle, Rista ran up and embraced him for winning the fight. The townsfolk gathered and thanked him for saving their town. They offered to host a banquet in honor of his victory, but he declined. He walked over to the center of town and started sweeping the demon's remains. Once it was all gathered together, he unleashed his Hell's Fire and incinerated the remains in front of all the civilians. He then declared that since it was a heavenly king, not one parcel shall remain, or the chance of revival would be 100%. He was insane after all, staring at the burnt, crisp spot on the ground. He wasn't even finished. He unleashed his Maximum Inferno next, obliterating the entire town in the process, scorching the civilians and giving everyone 4th-degree burns, while Rista tried to put them out and heal them. He ended up blowing up the entire town and got them kicked out. Once they finally got out of that peasant town, Rista said he was more like a demon lord than a hero. Nina and her father followed Batman and Robin, offering payment and gratitude for saving them earlier. Seiya snatched the pouch, and when he looked inside, he was instantly disappointed. He extorted the man for everything he had and left them homeless because he had burned down their village. Just before heading to the next town, Seiya suggested heading back to the Divine Realm for more training. When they returned to the Divine Realm, Ristarte vented to Arya. stopped. Suddenly, Seiya walked in and Arya introduced herself. She asked what was wrong, and he said he reached his limit doing gym bro workouts, but still needed to get stronger. Rista got excited like a toxic girlfriend, wanting to see her mans fail. She suggested going back to Gaia Brande to fight monsters to level up, but Seiya declined and said it sounded risky. Suddenly, Arya suggested training with a god from the unified divine realm. Arya said across the street there was a man known as the Divine Blade that swings his sword all day, every day like a deranged bum. They approached Cerseus and introduced Seiya to him. Arya then asked if he could train Seiya, and he accepted the request since she was a bad bitch. He looked over at Seiya and informed him that his training was ruthless and a human might not be able to withstand it. Then he told him to shut up because he sounded like Hercules from Dragon Ball Z. When they began sparring, Seiya was evenly matched with the bummy god. During lunchtime, Rista asked how Seiya was doing, and he confidently said he was improving, but still didn't hold a candle to him. On day 2 of training, Rista approached Cerseus in the cafeteria again, and he said everything was fine, but he was stuttering his words. He claimed the lunatic hero had already achieved a frightening power greater than his own in just one day. On day 3 of training, she approached him again, but he neglected to give her an answer, and when she asked for specific details, he crushed his glass cup and screamed at her, demanding to eat in peace. He got up and apologized, then walked off like a depressed loser salaryman. On day 4 of training, Rista wanted to prepare a batch of snacks to make it up to Cerseus. She encountered a wild bum hiding in the corner. He told her to come closer and whispered in her ear that the hero she summoned was a nut job, and he's sick in the head. He became 3 times stronger than Cerseus, but said he doesn't want to stop training until he's at least 100 times stronger, making him train without breaks, rest or sleep. Suddenly, Seiya appeared before them with an intimidating glare in his eyes. He said they've wasted enough time for the day and would need to train for the rest of the day without breaks. Cerseus lost it and threw his divine blade into the ocean. Then Seiya grabbed him and dragged him away, and Arya arrived, informing Rista that Ishtar had wished to speak with her. Rista apologized to Cerseus and left him to fend for himself against the lunatic. When Rista got there, Ishtar informed her that they needed to hurry back to Gaia Brande and that the next town was under attack by the Undead. She requested that Rista speed up Seiya's training. When she got back, Seiya was standing over and training hard. She demanded that he stop, and when he turned back, he said this was a serious part of his training regimen. She informed him of the upcoming danger in the next town and said they needed to hurry back. On the way out, Seiya called Cerseus a useless bum, then declared he was 100% prepared. As they arrived, townsfolk had already begun evacuating. They stopped by a shop to purchase holy water. Seiya requested 1,000 of them, but the shop owner said he didn't even have that many, and Seiya grabbed him by the collar and said he would burn down his shop if he didn't cough them up. But then Rayesta stopped his lunatic ass and requested just 10. Next, they went to a church to rendezvous with their allies. Inside, there was a suspicious priest and 2 dragonkins. When the priest greeted them, Seiya immediately poured holy water over his head, then he began burning up and turning into an undead. While he laid on the floor, he bragged about an army of 10,000 undead marching on the city at this very moment, but Seiya ignored him. Since he survived the holy water, Seiya insisted on being extra thorough and obliterating its body. When Rista heard those words, she hurried and rushed the 2 kids and the nun out of the church. This time, instead of hellfire, Seiya started off with maximum inferno and blew up the entire home of the Lord and Savior while their 2 new allies watched in horror. When the nun came to, she passed out at the sight of her burned down church, while Seiya caught her and requested gratitude for saving them for free. The boy immediately thought he was a lunatic, but introduced himself as Mash and his friend Ilulu. But suddenly, Seiya whipped out his holy water and poured it over their heads. Water boarded the woman on the floor, and Rista as well. When the 2 kids said he was a freak, the dynamic duo stared them down. Then Rista scanned them and intruded on their privacy, while the 2 kids said this wasn't what goddesses and heroes are supposed to be like. When she saw their stats, she said it would be nice to have them in the party, but Seiya immediately rejected them and called them weaklings. He stated he was not interested in babysitting a couple of noobs. He mocked them, pointing out the fact that they didn't realize the sus priest was an undead zombie, so they were basically useless. A group of bummy knights approached and demanded to know who burned down the holy church. However, the nun had awoken and immediately responded that the priest was actually an undead and blew up the church in an attempt to slay the hero, the goddess and the 2 dragonkin. When they heard who they were, they got down on their knees and started begging for their help. Seiya asked how much they were willing to pay, and the knight commander reluctantly said 1,000 gold coins. Seiya demanded to have it in writing, then turned and started heading to the battlefield. The knight asked if he wanted their assistance, but he declined, claiming they were too weak and pathetic. He told the 2 dragonkin to get lost and help the knights. Seiya started flying off and abandoned Rista with 1,000 gold coins on his mind. She got furious and grew her divine wings, looking like a majestic swan on, and she flew after him. When he noticed her catching up, he accelerated forward, leaving her in the dust. She turned on her Hellcat, forcing them to grow bigger while hurting her 100-year-old back, but she couldn't keep up at all. Suddenly, Seiya grabbed a hold of her hand and romantically pulled her along. He said, "Hey, Rista," and she started having affectionate fantasies about him because he finally called her by her name instead of just "Hey, woman" or "indecent immortal." Just before she snuck a kiss, he sped up and dragged across the country like roadkill under Crazy Joe's car. When they finally stopped, her wings were looking like a bum used them to take a shower. When they looked over at the undead army, Seiya claimed not a single soul would survive the bombardment. He raised his hands and summoned a meteor like how Madara did the 5 Kages. When it descended, it annihilated everything in sight, wiping out the entire army instantly. She asked when he had time to learn something like that, and he claimed he learned the skill while beating up Circeus. He then insisted on launching another one because he was pathologically insane. After the second meteor, he began losing consciousness, claiming to have used up too much MP. She asked how much he had left, and he explained he started with 15,000, but now only had 13,500. She was rendered speechless at his juice box behavior. After a few days, Elulu informed Rista that Mash had been missing for 2 days. Rista insisted he shouldn't be in any trouble. After all, the lunatic already wiped out the undead army. They went to check on him because he had been locked in his room ever since he developed a skill called synthesis, which allowed him to craft weapons. When they opened up his room, it was a complete mess. He turned around and presented a platinum sword that he synthesized himself using a special divine catalyst, the blonde hair of a premature balding goddess. He found loads of it all over her room and requested 1,000 more to make a bunch of spare swords. A delivery man arrived with an Amazon package delivered to the hero. He immediately got suspicious and thought it was an explosive, then demanded Rista unwrap it. When she opened it, she found a beautiful mirror and started checking out the old hag in front of her, but suddenly blood splattered and an image of a hostage tied to a chair appeared. Elulu took a closer look and realized it was Mash. The man behind him introduced himself as one of the 4 heavenly kings, Deathmagla. When he cut off Mash's mouth covering, Mash immediately told them to leave him and go after the demon lord. Seiya stepped up to Rista and demanded she open a portal to the divine realm. She asked why, but he insisted. He announced that Mash was a complete worthless chump, but he admired his bravery, and if he saved him, he would allow him to be his baggage handler moving forward. He unsheathed his sword and cut through the dimensions like Yami from Black Clover, slashing off the demon's hand. He shoved her through the gate, then proceeded to say something intelligent for the first time. He claimed once the demon realized his hand was cut off, he'll grab a knife and kill Mash with his other hand. Time in the divine realm flowed 1/100th of Gaia Brandes, and the demon would have about 10 seconds to grab another knife and shank Mash, then declare they had 15 minutes to find Mash's location. Rista took him to the head goddess Ishtar, and he immediately rudely greeted her. He demanded she show him the location of the hostage, but she claimed it was against divine law to give excessive help to humans. But Seiya declared the useless hag had been making portals for him since day 1, so she should be able to do the same. Then she agreed. She opened a portal to the outside of the castle where Mash was being held, and he left without thanking her. After they departed, Ishtar was impressed to see how much Seiya had grown this time. The moment they came out, Seiya blasted Deathmagla with a hell's fire, sending him through the wall, while Rista rescued Mash and healed him. He summoned a fire monster that had resistance to every attribute except ice, the one magic Seiya couldn't use. Rista scanned it and realized they were chopped and screwed, but the overly cautious hero had predicted this very situation and formed a contingency plan. Seiya charged forward, and Bruce Lee Finger punched the Inferno monster in the chest. He traded blows with it once more, and the monster began freezing up like when YNs get caught robbing a corner store. The demon was flabbergasted because the hero's affinity was fire, but he was using ice magic, but he had an ice magic bracelet. He had synthesized it in his bedroom, using more of Rista's hair, an ice cube, and a regular bracelet. He made multiple bracelets, one for every magic attribute, even the ones he already could use. He took a step back and stabbed through the frozen monster with his phoenix thrust. Afterwards, Seiya declared it was time to take out the trash. Rista escaped with Mash and let the lunatic blow the demon up to his heart's desire. When Mash finally woke up, he thanked Seiya, but Seiya didn't want his thanks. He wanted a servant to carry his bags. Elulu cheered as she was delighted to carry bags. After seeing Seiya fight, he realized they were leagues apart, then got on his knees and begged Seiya to take him on as an apprentice. Seiya said to just carry the bags and don't get taken hostage again or he'll leave him to die. Then Mash bowed his head and thanked his lord and savior. Overjoyed with excitement, he informed them about going to the dragon's den. According to the prophecy, a dragon descended from heaven 16 years ago, carrying 2 babies, Elulu and himself. The legend states they are to team team up with a hero and defend Gaia Brande and be granted a legendary weapon to aid in their quest. Rista grew excited and claimed Seiya loved new weapons, but he was already packing 3 platinum swords and Glocks with switches due to her premature balding issues. Rista tried to convince him to go, but he refused to go, claiming he wanted to make a stop in the Divine Realm first. When they arrived, the 2 peasant children were amazed and astonished to see such luxury that the gods indulge in on a daily basis. They stopped by the cafeteria first to search for Circeus. Rista finally spotted him with his mouth wide open, red-handed, and baking some cakes instead of swinging his divine blade. Rista was speechless at the amount of trauma that Seiya had inflicted upon him. He offered the cake to Seiya, and Seiya immediately declined, calling it disgusting trash. The pathetic god offered it to Elulu next, and she declined as well, claiming it smelled like sweat, while Seiya commended her, not encouraging the pathetic simp. When Seiya asked if he was still practicing with his sword, he dropped the cake and cowered it into a ball. Seiya informed the pathetic god that he won't be training him. He'll be training young Mash, declaring he can't have some wimp carrying his bags. Circeus puffed up his chest and scanned Mash abilities. He asked if he was using the fake-out skill like Seiya, but Mash wasn't. Then, all of a sudden, Circeus's mood completely changed from delicate flower to DMX when he discovered he would be training someone weaker. What a pathetic loser. Next, Rista introduced Elulu to Hestia, goddess of the eternal flame. Rista requested that Hestia teach Elulu how to use and control flame magic since she was a dragonkin. While looking for someone to train Seiya, they bumped into Valkyrie, the goddess of destruction. Valkyrie instantly grabbed Riesta and demanded she watch where she was going. She started rizzing up Riesta, then patted her on the back and walked off laughing maniacally. Seiya said he sensed some serious power emanating off of that disgusting hag. Riesta warned him not to even think about it. She was the most powerful god there was. For a human to approach and make a request of her is like asking for death, but Seiya didn't listen. Seiya approached her and made a request that she train him. Valkyrie grabbed him by the collar and declared that even though he was a hero and human, she would tear him apart nonetheless. Rista rushed over and pleaded for him to apologize to her. Valkyrie said letting him off with an apology would be going easy. She wanted to scatter his body across the entire cosmos. Suddenly, Arya appeared and requested she unhand him, notifying her that he was a hero summoned to stop an S-rank calamity. Valkyrie finally agreed, then rizzed up Arya and left. She then asked if he was looking for a trainer and had another recommendation for him, someone stronger than the pathetic Circeus. Arya introduced them to Adenella, the goddess of war, and requested that she train Seiya. Adenella Flash stepped behind them, like what Yoruchi did to Byakuya, and the only person in the room that was able to track her was Seiya. Adenella questioned if his mind was as sharp as his eyes, and wondered if he would be the first human to master her eternal swords technique. After hearing her vile laughter, Seiya instantly agreed to be trained by her, surprising Rista, as this should be the one person he should be cautious about. During the first day of training, Rista checked up on Mash and saw he was making progress. She didn't bother checking up on Elulu because she was responsible and had Hestia training her. On the way to check on Seiya, Rista came across Adenella sitting in the corner going through withdrawals and giggling like a maniac. On day 2 of training, Rista saw Mash and Seiya sharing a meal together. Then Seiya got up and left because he was disgusted with her presence. Rista asked what advice did his senior offer him, and Mash told her that Seiya advised him to doubt everyone and everything at all times. Even friends and family could be trying to kill you. Then told him to remember, he suspected Mash the most. On the way to Seiya, Rista encountered Adenella frolicking around like a dirty bum. She complimented her on her new look and makeup, but Adenella admitted she was embarrassed of looking like a bum in front of Seiya and confessed her feelings for him. Rista was disgusted, then asked if Seiya had finished training, but he had mastered the eternal swords on day 1. After the 3rd day of training, Mash shook Circeus' hand and thanked him, but Circeus thanked him instead for making him a man again. When they checked on Elulu, she was completely down and her stats were the exact same. Hestia pulled Rista to the side and informed her that Elulu was born with absolutely zero talent for magic. Before departing, Adenella ran up to Seiya and embraced him, confessing her love and requesting to join the party. Rista immediately rejected her like a jealous bitch. Adenella pulled out a cake for her dashing hero, unaware cakes disgusted him. When Seiya rejected her cake, Rista secretly screamed her heart out. With that, Seiya then told her to get lost and walked away. Adenella dropped the cake, while Rista ran over and begged him to be more empathetic. Before departing, Seiya declared he was 100% prepared. When Rista opened the gate, Adenella went full berserk mode and started massacring the other gods like this savage here. Riesta tried to scan him, but he had multiple firewalls protecting against viruses. Rista used her goddess powers to try to break through, but was blinded. Then he stumbled upon a village of dwarves, and Seiya immediately clutched his weapon the moment he saw the monsters. Rista calmed him down, informing him they are classified as monsters, but lead peaceful lives. Seiya asked Mash how many torches he thinks they would need, and he responded with 100. Scared scaring Resta that Seiya may have tainted the young boy's mind with cautiousness. Then Seiya said wrong. They'll need 500. When they reached the dragon's den, they found the seal with 2 handholds, signaling for Mash and Alulu to place their hands down, but the ignorant hero knew better. Seiya whipped out his switch and blasted the seal with his 100-round drum and eternal swords technique. They reached the inner corridor, and a mysterious voice began speaking, asking them to step onto the magic circle. When they arrived, they were greeted by a disgusting lizard named Lagos. He offered to guide them to their leader Levier. They met with Levier, the great mother dragon. Levier asked Mash to step forward and awakened his power to transform into a dragon. Seiya said to keep his distance because he never knew when he would attack him because he looked like a freak. Elulu asked for the same, but she said it would serve her no purpose. Her role was even greater, and her destiny would be to give up her life to become the sacred weaponization. Mash demanded to know what Alulu had to do with the legendary weapon, and the Great Mother Dragon explained that the sword will only manifest when a Dragonkin girl born as a human is offered up. Mash couldn't accept the terms and conditions, but Levier brought to their attention that the Demon Lord had conquered 70% of the world already, and the weapon is their only chance at victory. Whole castles and entire towns have been burnt down and overrun by giants and monsters. The one surviving human stronghold is Rosegard Castle. Any safe regions that they've been to recently will soon fall under their control. When they left, Alulu was visibly terrified and anxious. They all looked to Seiya for guidance, but he was buying speed seeds. The disgusting lizard explained, "Every seed you consume will increase your speed for 10 minutes. And Seiya declared if he was lying, he would come back and destroy his shop. Rista pleaded with him to consider Alulu's feelings, and he asked what was there to consider, and that there was nothing to say, so she just needs to do what she gotta do. Alulu didn't understand what he meant and ran away in tears. Later that night, the disgusting lizards held a feast for everyone while Alulu was getting ready for the ceremony. They offered Seiya a snack, but he looked over at Rista for approval, and she said to eat one or suffer. He picked one up and took a bite. When the lights went off, Rista looked around while Seiya wiped his mouth under the table. Alulu appeared and started walking toward a cliff where she would leap into the abyss and transform into the sword, Exation. Alulu looked over at Mash and Rista and said goodbye. She asked Seiya to make sure she doesn't rust when she becomes the sword. The old hag told her to hurry up and get on with it while all of the disgusting lizards cheered, like a cult. Mash couldn't accept it and turned to stop it, but he was halted by a pair of Terry Crews lizards. Alulu screamed out for them to stop, and the old hag told the men behind her to encourage her as they pushed her toward the cliff. All of the disgusting lizards started cheering even louder, like a deranged cult. Suddenly, the great Seiya man appeared to save the day, kicking the disgusting lizards off the cliff. She asked him why now, and he explained she's still got to do what she's got to do, which was to carry his bags, and she couldn't do that as a stupid sword. He said the sword may not even be all powerful just because some old lizard said so 1,000 years ago. That blasphemy shocked the disgusting lizard speechless. Mash transformed into a monster and broke free, but suddenly, he and Rista dropped to the floor. Apparently, the lizards had a contingency plan, and the snacks they ate earlier had a paralytic inside. They ordered the men to push Alulu into the abyss, but all of a sudden, the great Seiya man rose again and kicked the bums off the cliff themselves. They asked how could he even be standing, and Seiya explained he would never willingly eat something made by some slimy lizards, and that he spat it back out when the lights went off. He made it a rule to only eat meals prepared by the indecent immortal paralyzed on the floor, which made Rista flustered and blush. Levier used her dragon, god transformation, and transformed into a hideous abomination while Rista screamed for her life. She scanned her, and she had god tier HP. The great Seiya man asked Mash if he packed his special sauce, and Mash said yes sir like a good boy. Seiya pulled out a dragon slayer and said he would be a fool to enter a dragon's den and not be prepared. Rista was finally glad to have such a paranoid and cautious hero. He said he helped himself to a piece of each of Mash and Alulu's hair, and 100 of Rista combined with one of his platinum swords to create such a masterpiece. She asked how he got so many of her precious hairs, and he said he plucked them while she was sleeping. Levier activated the death necklace around Alulu's neck, and after 3 minutes, her life would perish. Seiya unleashed his Phoenix Drive, and when Rista scanned again, it took out half of its health. The monstrosity activated her hardening shell, but Seiya wasn't phased. He pulled out the bag of speed seeds and consumed the whole thing looking like Theodore from Alvin and the Chipmunks, then whipped out a spare Glock with a dragon slaying switch and a 100-round drum on each one. He used the eternal swords technique and hit her with a barrage of slashes, but it was doing 0 damage. The girl had 1 minute left on the cursed necklace. She asked Seiya to stop and told him to just let her die, but he wasn't going to fold and let the old hag have her way. But suddenly, the dragon looked down and realized she was at the edge edge of the cliff, over the abyss. He continued to hit her up with his Glocks, while she asked why he would go so far to save scum like her. The great Seiya said she wasn't scum, she was his baggage handler, which made Alulu cry tears to finally be called useful. Rista got up, chicken legs trembling, and demanded she release Alulu's curse or perish herself. The dragon suddenly got up and said the curse was lifted, but this was trickery. She just wanted to undo her hardening and flew up, unleashing a dragon's breath at Seiya, but he countered and pushed the dragon off the cliff. It opened up its wings, but it was unaware. They were filled with bullet holes, and the bitch fell to the bottom of the abyss. Seiya picked her up and jumped down to the crew. Rista asked when did he damage her wings, and he said before the hardening. He had a feeling she would go on the defensive, so he backed her into a corner and took out any means of escape, and packed her up once she got bricked up. Talk about being overly cautious. Suddenly, a magic sword rose out of the abyss. Seiya grabbed it and declared it to be the legendary sword, tricking the peasant lizards and their peon minds. After everything, Rista asked Seiya if he really plucked 200 hairs to create the dragon slayers, and he said he did. She asked if he did anything else, but he said he didn't because she was gross. She then demanded the truth and stated that the sword wasn't the real Exasian. She was a divine being and could sense sacred power. Seiya then explained it was a Platinum Plus sword he synthesized himself. He needed a plausible story to give the disgusting lizards so they wouldn't object to them leaving with Elulu after killing their boss bitch. On the way out of the cave, another group of bum knights were waiting for them at the entrance. So far, Seiya has survived by trusting no one, not even the goddess who summoned him. But what comes next changes everything. The enemies grow stronger, the truth about his past begins to surface, and his caution is finally pushed to its limit. And the moment he breaks is something no one sees coming. Part 2 drops this Friday. Like and subscribe for more anime recaps like this.